if you're not in crypto and you're sitting and looking at this space, and you get like Fartcoin in the news one day, Hacktoon in the news the next day, you're like, this is not serious, right? There's real, actual interesting things happening, but they kind of don't get like as big visibility as some of this news effectively. My thesis is over the next like 5 to 10 years, effectively you either become a super app or die, right? Because you either become this AI assistant, or you become like abstracted out by AI assistant.
I'm here with Illia from Near. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. Congrats on this great event.
Well, props to Erica.
Props to Erica. So I was looking at you guys earlier. You guys are like the crypto power couple of Lisbon. Like you're up there talking about how like AI is going to revolutionize crypto and how Near is going to be at the forefront of it. And she's like holding the baby while organizing a conference. It's pretty wild.
Well, she's a hero. Sure. So
just to start, generally, how do you think about where we are in the space right now? Like, we just came out of 2024. The inauguration's coming in a few weeks. Markets are unsure how to parse all of that. How do you think about 2025 looking ahead?
I mean, I'm an optimist, so I always look in a very optimistic way. I think obviously we see tide is changing in US, which have been kind of a cloud over the whole industry for past few years. I think one of the challenges with crypto has been traditionally that because you don't know what is right and what is wrong, people always like kind of invent new things and figure out how to do like what should be pretty simple. Like I use this example where you launch a blockchain, right? We had a distributed set of validators who launched Near blockchain. There's code on GitHub. There's like Genesis that everybody agreed on. They launched it, and in parallel, we needed to do a bunch of paperwork, right? Just in case. And the thing is, like, if that paperwork, if somebody disagrees about paperwork, we cannot do anything. The network is launched with distributed set. It's immutable. Like that paperwork has no direct attachment or influence on the actual blockchain. But because it's not clear, we kind of need to do it, right? And so
everybody at ease.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of covers everybody else. So like my hope is we're gonna have that addressed, and like we actually get like a lot more streamlined and clear rules on how to do things, and that both enables the innovators to like move quicker, but it also means that where before like I get questions a lot like, hey, crypto right now talks a lot about AI, but AI doesn't talk about crypto.
Yeah.
And the reality is like,
why do you think that is?
Well, so I mean, I have like few reasons I think it is that, but one of them is indeed like, if I'm a traditional AI company, even though like maybe capital formation crypto is something I want to tap into, like I'm just scared of touching that and like how complicated this is, and being also labeled as scam and kind of being being like effectively losing reputation from this. So I think it's like it's really important that as this gets more clarity, this means like more of the traditional companies that want to participate in kind of crypto economy will be able to do that. Now, the other part is I think this industry needs to like really deliver some good products for these other companies and users, and I think we have some, but it's not like most of them are still targeted at like a highly kind of in crypto people. And so I think there's like few startups that are doing really good work in AI space, doing good work with Prime Intellect, Exo. I mean, obviously, I think we're doing good work as well, but to bridge that gap. And I think this year we'll see that really like kind of turning the tide. But again, it's just like because of this, if you're sitting like if you're not in crypto and you're sitting and looking at this space, and you get like Fartcoin in the news one day, Hacktoon in the news the next day, you're like, this is not serious, right? So versus like, we have people for like growing applications to million of users in 10 days, or we have folks who are building, distributed training cluster that using like Prime Intellect is using Hugging Face and all this like Web2 partners to do that. And so like there's real, actual interesting things happening, but they kind of don't get like as big visibility as, some of this kind of memes effectively.
Yeah.
So I think like that's a combination of things, but again, I think this year we're gonna see a lot of this turning around and actually like being
So you think that regulatory clarity and also maybe just sort of
maturity,
political, I mean, maturity as
Yeah.
well, but the political landscape, I assume you're talking about like what's happening in the U.S. is going to make it easier and perhaps more appealing for non-crypto companies in that space and start actually looking at crypto. I think, a lot of people think for different predictions that 2025 will see like a major financial institution launching its own stable coin. And like if that were to happen, I think that would send pretty clear signal across TradFi that like crypto is sort of an acceptable thing, and that probably trickles down into tech and fintech and like AI and just the broader tech space in general.
Yeah, for sure. I mean that I think like already, BlackRock doing ETF, like all of that started a good wave. But again, if you're a startup in US last year, if you wanted to bank and you were doing crypto, you couldn't, right? So if you're a AI startup and you want to use crypto, like, and you're gonna lose your bank, that's not a good trade-off.
Yeah.
So I think like just making sure you have the banking capabilities, you have all this, like that would be a pretty fundamental, like for people to actually experiment and try things, and then clarity around like how to do it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge benefit for the space. I mean, I do think there is a counterpoint to that. I think it's nuanced. So if you look at Europe specifically and Mika, I'm based in France, and the sentiment there is that a lot of the smaller players are not going to be able to compete, to get the licensing and to also be compliant because the costs are just too high. So at the same time that we get regulatory clarity, and I think in the case of Mika, the regulation is quite heavy on compliance and can be quite burdensome and expensive for smaller organizations to comply. That's just going to, I feel like, just kill innovation in those places. Now, if the U.S. has a more nuanced, more sort of a gradient
For innovation-based
approach, which, presumably it should. I mean, given kind of the principles of more like U.S. philosophy, American philosophy around innovation and capitalism, we should see more innovation coming from there. And well, what's going to happen in Europe, right? I think what will happen in Europe is probably, you just have Binance and Coinbase and sort of large players putting it on their suitcases, and like everybody else just dies off.
Yeah, I mean, like I agree that there's a nuance under this, which regulation comes with additional overhead. I think there is an interesting story there with AI because traditionally, like being compliant with this requires like a ton of paperwork and actually a ton of communication with the regulator. And I very wholeheartedly expect there will be AI agent that will be doing that on your behalf, and you effectively just feed it like the actual information of what you're doing, and it effectively sits on top of the regulator and like updates them and gives them all the information, and the regulators will start like themselves asking for AI agents on their side to analyze all this input because they'll just get so much information, and like so like you effectively DDoS it with AI on one side, so they are kind of forced to adopt AI on the other side. So I'm kind of half expecting this, and half maybe may help some projects to do that. But I think like just in general, like AI legal agents are coming, and like I already talked with some projects who are doing this. And because a lot of it is literally just like paperwork filing, like filling in forms and kind of making some minor adjustments around things. Right, the requirement for Mika requirements like writing white paper, specifying all those things. Like this is all totally AI doable right now, and you can have like an agent that can like peer review itself and do all those like modifications, and then the cool thing is it can keep updating it, right? As you actually change your smart contract changes, it can like, see the update and like update the white paper. So I think just dropping down some of that kind of what traditionally would require like a massive legal firm to do that for you, dropping down that cost like 100x and making it also like almost real-time updates. And I think it will, solve some of the problems you mentioned that small startups are not able to do this. And then also will kind of force regulators to figure out how to make the interface more straightforward.
Yeah. Well, startup idea for anybody out there.
Yeah.
Build a NICA compliant agent AI.
Yeah. If you're interested, like, let me know. I mean, we have a lot of infrastructure to do this kind of stuff. So
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. Like, I mean, AI is going to permeate through all areas of business. Regulators are going to have to catch up. I'm not super confident that the EU regulators will start using AI anytime soon. They'll probably want to regulate it first.
I mean, they're trying to.
I mean, they are.
I was in Brussels.
They just got a brand new iPhone. I'm still waiting for,
Oh yeah,
wait.
what was that? Yeah. And Llama is not available too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting for sure. I think Europe is it's an interesting position where, like, they see this as the way forward to like overregulate it, and in turn, this means like, yeah, it's getting more and more complicated for startups here. But like, it is a global world, and like, you can be a startup anywhere and have people in Europe, right?
Yeah.
So, also Switzerland is outside of EU, so which we're a Swiss foundation. So that's one of the interesting tricks as well. So anyway, I agree that, like, yeah, regulation is a double-edged sword, but I do think like a clarity always breeds even if it's like complicated, like it'll breed innovation around that complication then. And I think we now have tools to do that, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, I like that. Let's talk a little bit about Near, and I think you guys have been really kind of like at the forefront of innovation in terms of blockchain and AI, and like bringing AI agents on chain. And I was just talking to Alexis from Safe earlier, and we went through like the different layers of AI agents, like the different kinds of AI agents. So like, starting from basically ChatGPT, right? Like,
Yeah.
you give it an input and it gives you some answer, and then you have to go and do that yourself. And then up from there is the ultimate pinnacle is like an AI agent that is free to do what it wants, and also can upgrade its own code. Like, on that spectrum, where do you think we're at right now as an industry, and like what's the next big unlock that allows us to get to the next?
I mean, as an industry, I think with like right now, actually, crypto industry is behind Web 2 in this sense, because most of the what we call agents right now are just a wrapper around ChatGPT with some personality that is able to like participate in conversations. There's some obviously innovations around like managing context and providing memory like for some things, but and people are like plugging in tools to do trading and to do like different things, but it's definitely not at the level where it's like, hey, this is an interesting product. The Web 2 has like, I speak with a lot of startups. People are actually starting to solve real problems, right? They can replace a marketing agency where it goes and like modifies the website to optimize conversions and SEO and increase impressions. The people do software agencies, right, where it effectively 10 times cheaper and 10 times faster to develop software. Like, if it's a basic crude kind of website, you just describe what it is and it's like generates it, and maybe there's a person there who like fixes a little bit, but it's like only done in 5% of cases. So there's a number of this kind of models that are really people are racing toward right now in broader Web 2. And I think there's few pieces that I think are needed for the next unlock that we're working on. So one is, like, right now I'm, for example, and maybe I'm like further on the spectrum of like being afraid of people stealing my data and whatnot, but I do think that privacy is a prerequisite. Like, if I want to give all my private data, like my email and my chats and whatever, to a AI agent, I want to know that it's not gonna go to somebody else's database, it's not gonna get stolen, somebody else will not look at it. Right? Now imagine you do that, like you give access to all this. Now, I have a lot of emails with documents signed, etc. Like I can just, hey, collect all those documents, create me a summary table, go to whatever, I don't know, like I do a lot of angel investments, go to Pooley and like find all of the angel investments I did and like organize them type thing. Like you can have a lot more like rich interaction. But even beyond that, indeed, you can have like, okay, well, book me a trip, with Erica to San Francisco and like organize, hotel and this, and it can like look at types of hotels and Airbnbs I stayed and flights I took, to decide how to do that. Right. So that's kind of like, I call it an AI assistant part. So this is like a model that runs on your side. So it needs to be like, wherever you give it data, it needs to run privately. And I like even OpenAI and kind of, other providers, I don't think of them as private enough. You need to be able to have uh, kind of that assistant to be able to take actions, right, on your behalf. And this is where the money comes in, right? Because like a lot of these things end up doing a actual transaction, right? And the thing is, like in this case, you can even use credit cards and like this is still a possibility, but as you kind of work toward more interesting use cases and especially work toward more business use cases. So imagine now I'm running a company. I want like, hey, I want somebody to generate 100,000 impressions on my website. Well, now it can find another AI agent who is a marketing agent, negotiate with them. Okay, I'll do it for $100 or whatever. Create commitment and then interact. So this is where you effectively need some way of like inter-agent kind of communication, negotiation, like contracts, payments, and disputes, right? And so this is actually what we effectively package all of this into intent framework, right? And so I think that is right now missing both in Web 3 and in Web 2, because even in Web 2 right now, you still need to like sign a legal contract and like use the agent if you want to use some service agent.
Does agent to agent communication need to happen in a human language or in English?
So it's really interesting.
I just thought of that as like if two AIs talk to each other, like of course one can formulate a prompt or a query, goes to the other, and it could be whatever language. But it doesn't have to be. Like, I mean, maybe.
So it doesn't have to, but like realistically, it's probably gonna.
Yeah.
Because like natural language is like, we know it's a descriptive interface and it kind of describes all the like level of human, and you can obviously like drop some JSON into it or whatever. They're like data objects, but the reality is like that's a universal interface, and because it still will need to work with human here and there, right? It's just like way easier to use that, and all those language models are effectively trained on.
But maybe they would develop their own language without us, like without us knowing. When they're interfacing over API, they just start talking their own language. That would be pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually like some people have been experimenting with this, like more compressed language that they can use. Yeah, but I realistically think it's going to be natural language, because when you do need a dispute resolution, like when something goes wrong, you want to go and look and make sure and understand what's happening, right? So I think there's a lot of reasons to kind of keep it backward compatible with humans.
Yeah, keep it backward compatible with humans. That's prerequisite for building AI, you think?
Yeah. Because like we need to go and understand what's happening, and like natural language is easy to understand if it like exchanges bits and parameter like activations in your networks. You're like, what is this?
Yeah, when I was watching your talk earlier, like something I was sort of thinking about what gets disrupted, because every time there's a new innovation or new technology, you always think about like how is this going to disrupt the humans. And one thing that seems maybe it's an unobvious take. Maybe people have been talking about this. I don't know, but to me it feels like an unobvious take that like UI UX designers get disrupted, or at least their whole kind of raison d'être changes quite a bit, because like the AI doesn't care about the UX. Like the AI just needs this simplest way to interface with the data and be able to change the state of some machine. And so like if you go back to the booking your flight example, the AI can figure out whatever interfaces we have now, or it can work over like an API or some other like means of communicating directly with some third party server and database. Like you know, a lot of people in crypto are talking about abstraction and like building better UX, and like you know, building better UX will bring more users.
The best UX is AI.
The best UX is AI, right? Because like the best UX is voice.
Yeah.
I mean, for humans, it's like the best way we communicate our intent is through speech, and perhaps at some point through thought. You know, if we go like,
Yeah.
I always think that when I often think when I'm using a phone, you know, this is something I've thought about like a lot since I'm using smartphones for like 10 years is, you know, this is such an inefficient way. It like the phone is just literally there's this like interface between me and like the final state of my desires,
Yeah.
just to book a flight. This
Yeah.
and between like thought and the flight, actually getting on the flight, there's this weird thing in the middle where like I'm articulating desires through select fields and like date pickers and
Yeah, and those are like highly inefficient.
Yeah.
But at the same time, so I actually my thesis is I think like it will be conversational. There's still a place for like typing because like not always you want to talk.
right
And
until we can think.
yeah, but the important thing like you still want to see sometimes a nice UI because the what language is really good at navigating a highly ambiguous like state, right? But whenever you get to like really like narrow details, actually UIs are better. And so we have a demo that generates UI. So you say like, for example, you start with like, hey, I want to swap some tokens, or I want to see like what is a liquidity pools was there, etc.
Yeah.
And it generates UI for you specifically for that problem
Right.
on the fly.
Yeah.
It just writes code for the UI on the fly, and you can like, oh, actually, I want to see this information. I want to see APR, or I want to see P&L or whatever, and so it can modify it on the fly as well, and it can remember that like this is how you want it, and so I think of it as it's going to still be a combination where like. I mean, unless we go full thought and like end to end, that's a separate, maybe a little bit longer term. But even right now, we can already have, to your point of like the final chain abstraction is effectively AI assistant, where you say, hey, like I have $100, like what should I invest in, right? And it gives you like a rich interface with options, but you can also keep talking to it, or you can click and use it. So you have like multiple ways of interacting with it.
Yeah, and there's also like information that you might want to have like summarized. So
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes you want a map, right? You don't you don't want a language description of the directions. You want a map, right?
Yeah.
So like you want this rich interfaces, but the cool thing is the AI can now just generate them on the fly, which means there's no need for apps, as you said. There's no need for UIs. And so you have effectively your AI assistant. And this is like my thesis is over next like 5 to 10 years, effectively you either become a super app or die, right? Because you either become this AI assistant, or you become like abstracted out by AI assistant.
Okay. So I guess aggregation theory just goes, to the fullest extent.
Yeah, to the fullest extent, but it's kind of like it aggregates, like the aggregators get actually like the current aggregators get dismediated.
Yeah.
Because the current aggregators are effectively serving as this like intermediate. The final aggregator is your device.
Yeah.
Right. So devices like first we'll probably see like conversion to super apps, and then the super apps just gonna be shipping their own phones.
Yeah.
Or devices or whatever like form factors we're gonna have.
Yeah. Well, that's crazy.
But that's I mean, this is next 5-10 years, but.
Yeah, because I mean, look, like all the current super apps. So you think email, social network, any like communication, texting. I mean, basically, you have like all these different. We have all these different means of communication through that we use on our devices, like different messaging apps. But I mean, the end goal is just communicate some information to another person, and then businesses and services. Like say travel booking or like Calendly or these sorts of things are communicating with another computer. Basically, it's like human to computer interface. And if you can just aggregate all of that into a single, sort of one interface where you can do all of those things, those different services that we have now, like that layer, can effectively just become APIs. They don't need interfaces anymore. Or they need like much simpler interfaces or very, very reduced interfaces maybe to communicate some end state. But even the AI can generate that based on some response.
Exactly.
Right?
AI can generate for you specifically how you want to look. Like, for example, for events, I want to look at this way. So like it'll generate you a calendar app on the fly for you, how you want to look at it. And like whenever you use Calendly service, like to book somebody else's time or book it yourself or, get a tickets into Opera or something, right? All of that will end up in this like UI you like and you want to generate. So you don't need to like navigate different types of UIs as well. That right now
When you look at it from that perspective, you just realize how inefficient everything is.
it is. That's
So incredibly inefficient.
but I think that the even more interesting side is to look at because I did this thing where I mapped out every single industry that exists in the world, right? So like from mining and like food production and what is all the logistics and walls of warehousing and factories. And so like if you map all of this out and you imagine like, okay, well, between that and actually consumer, there's like 50 other layers of other stuff that happens, which is like everything from all the regulatory stuff to the kind of aggregators, payment processors, search engines, like all of these other things that actually like not really like delivering things, but actually just like proxying information, and kind of they serve as this effectively like outsourced decision making, right? Like when you go to Amazon, you kind of expect Amazon did some checking on what they listed, right? When effectively you outsource decision making to them. Same as when you search for stuff, they ranked it, or Google ranked it. You outsource decision making, right? And so if we assume that you have a very powerful decision maker on your device, right, your AI assistant, that is able to analyze all this information, raw information, and make a decision what's best for you, right? Not what Google thinks is best for you to make more money off you, but what is actually best for you. Right now, you have all of these layers of middle kind of that are not needed anymore. That's why I'm saying like it's kind of disaggregating the current aggregators who are kind of serving and really putting all the power to the user. And so you can now have effectively a very direct relationship, not with even like Amazon but like directly almost with a factory, right? Hey, I want, I like to eat this food. My AI assistant knows I like to eat this food. So it like orders it from the factory, and, it's like the factory aggregates everybody's orders, plans how to build this. They have their own AI agent that like does all this planning, and then, they're shipping it at the right places, right? So you kind of remove all of this middleman right now that exists in the business sense, right? Because most of, if you look at any big city, there's this tall towers. Those tall towers are not producing stuff. They just like there's people there moving effectively information papers and making decisions on some of this level. So all of that is gone as well. And that is and this is where blockchain comes in, because blockchain is a way to really connect this peer-to-peer parties and create agreements between them and do financial transactions and do all the things in peer-to-peer way, and have the guarantees that you want between like semi-trusted parties and reputation counting, etc. So that's kind of where like AI is effective as this front end that if replaces decision making and kind of serves on your behalf, and a blockchain is a back end that kind of is connecting all of those peer-to-peer parties. And I mean that's what blockchain for AI is.
I think you just unlocked something for me here, which is, this idea that knowledge work gets disrupted by AI. I just got the bird's eye view of it, which is that effectively all of these information
Process
state change industry, right? Like, whether it's like banking, for instance. Banking is fundamentally a bank is a big machine that does state changes. And like a lot of humans involved in making sure those state changes
are correct, and the other humans didn't mess up,
right?
Like still took money. So
but all of that stuff just disintegrates when you have an AI that's able to do all that for you and also execute the state change using blockchain. Wow, that's I just got my mind blown. So I mean, you guys are also like working on like intents, and so like this flows in, I think, nicely to that conversation where you have a blockchain that basically acts as the intermediary between different services, where solvers are figuring out what people like, what's the best outcome for someone's request. Like solvers also get disrupted by AI to some extent.
Well, so, I mean, solvers just become AI agents.
It's just
So and then kind of how we look at it, like for us, intents is effectively this interface between any actor, like between, and actually not even two actors, but any number of actors, right? So for example, I start the request. I say, hey, I mean, the example I like where it includes multiple parties is, I want to buy an apartment and I want to borrow money against the apartment to pay for the apartment, right? Which is like normal thing. It's called mortgage,
Yeah.
right? So I want to buy with a mortgage. So I say that, right? So you have now multiple agents on the back end who are saying like, oh, I have an inventory of apartments I'm planning to sell, right? So they can provide me these options. And you have also the lending agents who are like looking at my credit, looking at the apartments you're looking at, and can evaluate, oh, we're going to cover, 70%, they need to put deposit, etc., right? And so all of that, options are being kind of broadcasted back to you. Your AI assistant can filter it down based on your, okay, well, you work in this location, so maybe you want something around there. So like it can like narrow it down even already to what you like. And then I'm assuming, for many cases, person will still want to look, maybe visit, and then you say, okay, cool,
Maybe they don't want to visit.
well,
Maybe the AI knows you so well that like it just buys your dream
just buy it.
apartment.
Exactly. Yeah.
You don't even have to see it. You walk in, it's done.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, I mean, you can think of this flow, right, where like it narrowed it down to the options you like. Maybe you visited it, like scheduled already appointments to visit them, so you don't need to like figure out because it knows your schedule. You go visit, you select which one. Mortgage already kind of was pre-calculated, and so this intent of like buy this mortgage, pay money here, you put deposit, like all of that is like together being computed and settled on chain, right? And there is also like dispute resolution if the apartment, there's some issues with the apartment, all of this, you can roll back this money are actually in escrow, there's legal whatever requirements are satisfied. So all of that is just an example of like an intent and multiple solvers who are AI agents who were many AI agents participating in this conversation, and you finding what's the best lending rate you can receive, and what is the apartments you like. So like that is an example like of very much Web 2 standard thing, but clearly all of the components here, like crypto can solve a lot of the pieces, with this lending to give you better rates, etc. And the solvers here are indeed like sophisticated AI agents. Like for example, lending solver should be an AI agent that it evaluates risk, understands like, hey, this apartment is on the liquid market, maybe I can give a better LTV, etc. Right? So I think like to me, I mentioned this, like I think an interesting like Uniswap moment of intents will happen when and we're actually probably gonna have it like within next months, is when we have an AI agent running inside TE, so inside verifiable secure enclave, and being able to respond to intents, right? And so because of this now, you can have any dynamic logic, right? It can be a DCL style Uniswap trade. It can be lending that evaluates your credit score. It can be anything effectively running inside this enclave and responding to intent requests. And so I think that would be like a massive enabler, because this is also, it runs itself, right? You have verification that this is the code that runs there. So it's fully autonomous, right?
So how important are TEs in this whole?
So I think TE is a very critical piece, because again, right now, you need, like, you either relying that this, like for example, there's agents that exist now, but they're run by some company or person, right? So you need to rely that whenever you're calling them, they're not gonna steal your data, they're not gonna like mislead you, etc. Now, intent solves some of that, but you're still like exposing a lot of private data to them, right? And so TEs are effectively solving the privacy and verifiability, and so those are kind of massive unlocks.
Because what? Because you send your data encrypted to the TE.
You send an encrypted TE. It only decrypted in that specific computer. So there's like a session key that's created for that session. So even if later somebody like broke into TE somehow, like that session is already deleted. There's no information stored. The inference itself is done inside TE. So AI inference, like LLM inference, is verified as well. And so which model was run. Like inputs, everything, temperature, etc. and you can have arbitrary other code that pulled in information from websites, etc., analyzed it and output. So you have like a full kind of end-to-end system that's fully verified, and nobody saw what went in and went out except you.
Inference is in the TE.
Yeah.
And
So the GPUs H100s work with Intel TDX together. They have effectively like integrated that, and so you can run the AI inference
on top of an H100.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is like massive unlock that happened like in 2024.
Wow.
Yeah.
And like you were talking about, user-owned data and how important that is. I mean, that kind of fits in with there. But so I guess what you're saying is that we don't need like this configuration of having a TE on top of an H100. You can still trust some third party to be doing that computation. You don't need to like have your own H100
Exactly.
to run your own.
Yeah. You effectively, anyone now can run this, and they cannot access what you run, and they cannot change like what the outcome, the result, right? Like you have you have verification that what the code you wanted was run.
So, OpenAI, Anthropic, like all these big AI companies, what is...
They should on board to use our tech.
Okay. What's preventing them also from, just using, as a, I think like commercially good selling point, right? Like that your data is private, of implementing this sort of...
Yeah. So I mean, like they should on board on our tech stack. Yeah.
So yeah, talk a little bit about the stack and like what the kind of product offering is.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest problem that like everybody acknowledges with Near is like Near is building too much, and I'm like, yeah, sorry guys, we're shipping too much. It's sorry, but not sorry. But I mean, the stack is is multi-layered because there's a lot of components that need to come together, right? So obviously we have a sharded blockchain, so Near protocol kind of blockchain itself.
Yeah.
It enables root of trust. You have identity on it. You have kind of all the ownership, kind of smart contracts, etc. You have intent settlement there, and so you like given we're targeting like billions and trillions of agents and billions of people using it, we need something that really scales. So kind of Near blockchain offers that. We have built so-called chain signatures. So this is the system that allows Near accounts to hold assets on other chains.
Oh yeah.
So you can hold Bitcoin, XRP, Solana.
So it uses some kind of like threshold MPC.
Yeah, it's a threshold MPC that's attached to our subset of our validators, and they effectively act based on on-chain transactions that are kind of indicate what messages you want to sign.
Orchestration, cross-chain orchestration.
Exactly. Yeah. And so the cool thing is Near has also yield resume, so it's asynchronous environment, and so within the same transaction you can actually even postpone the execution, go fetch some data from another chain, and resume the same transaction going forward.
Okay.
So this offers like a very interesting programming environment, and it allows to do like multi-chain apps, etc. Now on top of this, we built Intents. So Intents is indeed this like protocol of get something done by somebody else. So the protocol itself is off-chain, right? So this is like I issue intent. You as a solver can provide me some options that are signed. I say yes, I select your option, I co-sign on it, and we settle this, right? And I mean, options can contain multiple other solvers can provide, like it works together. So this is the framework that, again, for in traditional crypto sense, you can do trading, you can do option contracts, you can do OTC, you can do all kinds of stuff with this. But it also, I want to buy an apartment, or I want 100,000 impressions on my website, or whatever. I want a pizza tomorrow at 5 a.m. Like this is the framework that allows to do that. And so kind of like inter-agent kind of contract communication. And finally, we have the TE infrastructure that is enabling to run, again, this both LLM inference and agentic code. Right now, we have kind of Python agents. We're also going to support like Eliza and other frameworks, so you can run effectively whatever your agent kind of code base desires. You can deploy it there. It can be either fully autonomous, or you can still manage it, but the kind of each session is still encrypted and private. And so So this is a product that, like, altogether now you can offer effectively a number of products, right? So, and this is where things are interesting because the stack is so versatile, you can build so many things, right? So we have people building, prem brokerage, right, where you deposit Bitcoin, which are held by a near smart contract, and then you can use pump.fun and intents actually swapping, borrow capital and swap into Sol and buy something on pump.fun. And you as a user just, deposit the Bitcoin and then using pump.fun, right? Like, it uses chain signatures and intents. You can have indeed like AI agent that is serving as market maker that runs inside TE, right? So it's fully autonomous and it's able to, satisfy the intents, right? And kind of do trades. And then you can have, more traditional, like a marketing agent that is, gets access to your website and is able to do changes. And again, this access is not shared with developer, this agent, right? It's only available in the session. So lots of different products have been built around the stack. And so Near AI offering effectively this like packaging of the stack into agent hosting. So you can launch like whatever agents you want. They then gets, enables them to be discovered. So it's the intents architecture. And kind of within that as well, we have, research around better models, how to improve agents, and kind of other things. So a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And
It's a huge stack.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other projects building, to be clear, like, all kinds of different components, right? More data labeling and synthetic data and, inference and all the stuff that, like, kind of like we're working with to really like produce a complete solution that is comparable to what you get from like centralized offerings.
Okay. So what can people expect in the next coming months? Any exciting things you guys are going to be announcing, or what's Air Alpha?
Yeah, so I mean, we're finishing up the TE infrastructure. So we just had like a little bit of alpha leaked at our town hall, but we're gonna be announcing more in coming weeks. We have more interesting things, are like, the currently launched intents are only for swaps, but like with more and more chains. So we're gonna showcase how this works now with, as I said, like more sophisticated agents that are actually doing both trades, but also like other interesting things in Web 2. And then, there's like a number of partnerships as well with interesting folks to kind of plug this infrastructure in, not just in Web 3, but also in Web 2.
Cool, man. Thanks so much for doing that.
Yeah.
It's been a great conversation.
Hopefully, couple mind-blown ideas to spread. Yeah.
Yeah. Cheers.